have an expert session on data analytics and the rise of open data. And our speaker is Ademola Adesalu. Ladies and gentlemen, please meet Ademola Adesalu.
Ademola led the team that set up CRC Credit Bureau Limited Infrastructure and Solution in 2018. He was also charged with the responsibility of ensuring that the company obtained the Bureau operating license and certification from the Central Bank of Nigeria.
He was the general manager in charge of operations and technology of the organization till December 2021, following which he was appointed managing director of CRC Data and Analytics Limited in January 2022. He is charged with the responsibility of setting up the new entity to provide data and analytics services.
His experience spans over 29 years in the fields of consulting, technology, financial auditing, business development, data analytics, and general management. Let's welcome Ademola Adesalu.
Welcome, Ademola. Please a round of applause for Ademola.
Good morning, everyone. I am very happy to be here, and I'm also glad to experience the energy right from the entrance to, everyone here. I'm here to talk to you about open data, and essentially how I thought to approach it is, first of all, provide a bit of a definition, and then essentially at the end of the session, make you aware that, there's data everywhere, and, allow you to start thinking of what we can do with it. Okay? So, are we ready? Okay. So essentially, open data essentially is data that is available for use and authorized for free use by the author or the provider of the data. Essentially, why they provide this data is essentially for you to be able to do different analysis and make insights from it. Now, the common thing about it is that you find that most of them is governed by, are provided by institutions or corporate bodies that feel that this data will be of use to the public. So wherever you see such data, you should be able to download them and use them for whatever purpose that you want to do. Next slide, please. So next one. So when we talk about open data, we want to talk about the characteristics of the data. First of all, you find that they are free to use, so there are no challenges with respect to whether it's restricted to anyone or not. You can also, when you use the data, you can reuse them and distribute them also for other purposes. The other thing they are not restrictive in terms of access to it. So unlike some data that is, for internal use, this one is essentially for public use. Next slide. And essentially, in terms of quality and accuracy, the provider essentially is responsible for this, but I believe that before they put them out there, there's a lot of work that goes into ensure that they are accurate, because they are, in the following slides, you will see where people apply them and people depend on them for certain decisions that they would make. So what are the various examples of open data, and where can you find them? You find open data, globally, there are a lot of them everywhere. But I try to bring them down to our environment, because that's where you need it. You will find open data with the government data. Let's start with that first. The Nigerian Bureau of Statistics, that's the previous slide, please, is a very good example of where you would find a lot of data about several aspects of our environment. And then, of course, one institution that have used this data and other government data effectively is Budget. If you've heard about them, what they've done is that every now and then, when government, talk about they bring out their budget, they go in there, analyze it, and simplify it for you to use and make interpretations from it. Now, if you go to the budget site, you will find them do breakdown of budget at the national level, at the state level, and even also in terms of the performance of the budget, you will find them, you find such analysis there. But what they've done essentially is to take data from government and then put it in a format that it is easy to understand by the citizens of that environment. Now, the other environmental use of data, you have those who use it for social and demographic type. You have there's a portal. I mean, if you can see the slide, I'm sure the slides will be shared. They have the Nigerian data portal and the Code for Nigeria data. They also have been able to try and put together data about, some demographic data about our environment that you can use for analysis. Next slide, please. So then, of course, the very important one that you find those that are business inclined or finance inclined use is financial data. You will find that at the CBN site. You'll find that at the SEC site. Why do people tend to use this a lot? Because you can do a lot of modeling around this for business use. And of course, for healthcare, you find people use data from the World Health Organization and some other bodies that, put data together. Next slide, please. So what are the benefits? I'll just pick a few. The first one is transparency and accountability. And if you remember, I mentioned Budget and what they did. So you find that most countries that push for open data, especially at the government level, is essentially providing some form of accountability to the citizens. Because if you can provide information about say budget and budget performance, for instance, the data people, my data people here can analyze it and still actually tie whatever the governor or the mayor or the whoever is in charge of that environment, you can compare what they are saying with data, and of course that promotes the aspect of transparency and accountability that we're talking about. The other one is social impact and that open data gives. I mean, one of the areas that there's a particular link in the Nigerian Bureau of Statistics. It's called the Poverty Index. They actually did build a portal which, when you go there, you would see how they analyze poverty index within the country and by different states. And of course, they are able to also connect either education level in the household, the number of persons in the particular household to the poverty index. Now, why am I bringing all this up? Next slide, please. Is that you're being aware that we may not be there totally in the country, but being aware that even for the data that is available, there are a lot of analysis that we can do for the purpose of social improvement, financial empowerment, and even creation of new businesses, okay, that will solve other problems. Okay, that's why I'm making you aware. But the reason why the other part of not being there is that These ones can form the foundation of other types of data that can be put together. So imagine you now coming together as a cohort and say, I think there's a market very close to this place called, I think, K2 or Mile 12. How many of you have wondered how many of those food items go in and how many of them come out? And the ones that don't come out, what really happened to them? Now, the government in the agricultural sector have been talking about the agricultural value chain. Now, if a couple of you geniuses here come together and say, look, we're going to go and do a study and be publishing on a daily basis the number of trucks that brings in food items into that environment, the types of food items that they bring in, how many of them, go bad before they are purchased. You understand? And how do these people, how can we create a value chain in there that minimize the wastage? That's a project, right? Exactly. So, and it's doable, right? So let's look at that, and then you can see the businesses that will be created out of that. You can see the improvement in the quality of work, the throughput of the people in that environment, and of course your contribution to that environment. So that's why if you look at open data and analytics, you find that the essence of it is that you get the data. The black box is where you do all the stuff that is related to analytics, and I'm sure they talked about that yesterday, and a number of you know that, where you take in the data, clean it, analyze, and all that. And then, of course, you produce actionable insights. So that's why I gave you the example of the market there. It's a project that is I keep thinking about it, and I think that, until someone cracks that, we can, solve a problem in the area of agricultural value chain improvement. Next slide. So, in terms of use case, I think I pretty much mentioned it: agriculture and productivity, healthcare improvement. I mean, if you take your mind back to 2020, how many of you remembered what happened that year? Right? COVID. So how do you think that, it was nipped? How did data support, nipping it in the bud? You notice that every country had a portal where the number of new cases have been reported, the ones that are discharged, the one that dies, and all that. That is an example of a use case of open data, and it was used globally to be able to address and track the spread of the disease, track the control, and of course, by the time they were now saying, okay, yes, it's over, it was exactly matched with data. Okay? So that is really the part of the use case of this. And public infrastructure monitoring. I mean, how many of you have gone on Third Mainland Bridge lately? And you notice that, a lot of things are happening in there. One of the things that came to mind today is that, is it possible for us to, take to charge the Federal Ministry of Works or the Ministry of Works in every state and say, let's have data on a regular basis of the number of new roads that are being built, existing roads that are being maintained, and the ones that are not even been touched at all. And one of the things that I can also deduct from there is that with such data, I can actually come up with insight on the efficiency of our spend in terms of, road construction and in Nigeria. So those are some of the things that you can find yourself using it for. Next slide, please. In some countries have used it. I thought to bring it home, but New York has a very robust portal where you have data about every aspect of their environment. But in Nigeria and South Africa, South Africa used open data essentially to track crime, and that was one of the use case that they did. I mean, those of you who have been monitoring South African news know that, especially in Joburg, it's really a tough area in terms of crime. But they now decided to address it with data. And that is, you'll find the use case on their portal there. And of course, I mentioned the budget for you. That brings it home as to what they are doing with respect to governance. Next slide, please. So this is one of my favorite, ways of explaining, taking on any data science project or data analytics project. It simplifies everything. So after, having access to this data, how do you then, make sense of it? You must have a use case or business problem you are trying to solve. That's why I recommend this CRISP model. You take the use case, and then that allows you to then know what type of data that you want to you need to actualize that work. And then when you get that data, you also be able to know, you also determine, what the areas of data quality and the completeness of that particular data before you build your model, and of course testing your model. And then of course you go around after testing your model. If there are any issues, you go back around the process. So, but essentially what I'm trying to say with the short time that I have is that open data is everywhere, at least in most of the developed climes. They have been able to harness it and put it in places where brilliant minds like yours can use them for insight development and, of course, improving the society. In our own environment, we have put in some place. We didn't call it open data then. We didn't think that it's open data. But the likes of the CBN, the likes of NCC providing statistics about the growth rate of GSM and the performance of the companies that are participating in that environment, the COVID case that I gave you examples are some of the examples of open data that we have. And then, of course, the challenge to the audience here is that we have not done much. How can we, start gathering data and, make it available for the data community to build solutions? That's essentially the message around there. So thank you very much, and I'm here to take two questions. Yeah.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Akin, and I want to ask, what do you think is the biggest issue in collecting data for Nigeria?
Thank you very much. I think that's a very good way to start. I think the biggest issue is one. I think the biggest issue is, first of all, orientation. I had a conversation with someone one day, and we were talking about market data gathering, and they say that you go into the market and they see you there asking for what is this, what's the price of this today, what's the price of that tomorrow, and there's this sense of why are you in my business? You understand? So we need to work on orientation first, for people to know that, look, without putting this data together, we can't move forward, and it's also for their own benefit. The second, I think the second issue is support through governance and through governance. So if you have the right support, of course, with a bit of funding also, you can put the machinery together to be able to gather data on a regular basis. And then, of course, largely is the data gathering techniques, knowledge about the data gathering techniques, because I don't think that the clients that have improved or matured today just got there overnight. You understand? So once we're able to put together that mechanism together, it will also help. I think there was somebody there, yeah.
So the question I have is if, like you said about data gathering, and there's a problem with data gathering. So if now, like you said, we're meant to build solutions, how are we meant to go about building solutions if I don't exactly trust that the data is accurate because there's not enough data gathering? So for example, like in rural areas now, we don't know how well data has been gathered there. How do I trust that I can build solutions with the data that is available?
Thank you. So there are two parts to the question. First of all is gathering the data. The second part is data quality. Now, for every project like of such nature, there are processes involved, and what happens is that for a typical project like I mentioned earlier, before the data is gathered, there has to be a set of matrices that will be put in place. And of course, there's also a governance model. When I say a governance model, what the governance model means is that there will be a collector, checker, validation, process before it's published for use. Do you understand? That's what happens in every climb anyway. Whatever data you want to get, a data of the attendance here, we have a means of measuring it, but somebody still needs to validate or put some testing. And those that are into statistics know how to take a sample of a population, test it for quality issues before use. So the governance will handle that aspect of it.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Ademola. Thank you so much. Please, another round of applause for Ademola. Thank you so much. Ademola, we really appreciate.
Thank
I
you.
would like to just present this plaque to thank you for sharing your time, your expertise with this amazing audience. We really appreciate you. On behalf of our Data First Africa organizers, we present this to you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, sir. Thank you.